Hello, humanity. Boxing to mind. Boxing in the martial arts and the sciences, the ancients understood how they share an identity. There is a simultaneous nature, that is the value of correlation nature. For example, one identity of volume, therefore one definition alone, is all other definitions while being its own. That's why we have this. That's why all the words. There's a reason why they are distinct words. There was a method, a breaching method, using human fact-shaping nature that came from semi-ancient times, since before modern nations' religions. Thank God. So, because all that is recorded haven't been shown to us. All that is real. What is common also with that is everyone rolls leaving out those truths that are of a nature that are true always, not denying exceptions, not denying exception nature, not valuing that denied. They are valuing identity, science /S properly. They are valuing the science, the volume science we are properly. What is that? The five bonded. Where that is not true. For example, exceptions, exception nature, the three bonded. There's three bonded. And then where that is not true, there's five. For example, sequence true. Before the order of the finite, while as the value of the finite, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. While as what is active. While as what is progressive. And while as what is the reason why we are a semi-nature while being a complete nature as an individual. Simultaneously, we're, as the species, we are also grouped and are also the species identity of volume /S bonded. The cell nucleus, the cell body, cell wall are bonded. This is English, how it was revealed to be taught in ancient times. And then a semi-ancient born. Since before latter semi-ancient times, modern nations' religions had already born. Roles all victims, having had to respond as fact-shaping nature, having had to defend that, which simultaneously the proverbial devil knew. Archetypal criminal enterprise, we could call it if we want to call it a breaching method, no. Further, we're talking about. But then for example, with the idols too, and with the takes on history, while simultaneously throughout the country, even though it's reportedly deadly, people are protesting, but for racism, not for equality of fact-shaping nature. They're forcing names and labels to the breaching method. With physical delusions, no. The same people being hurt by it, originally still. When they said, when you learn about when they bring up how our founding parents reportedly had slaves, they're leaving out what is simultaneously relevant. Again, exception nature. They had identities of experts, of logic, that were criminally foreign influenced and were using self-value, criminally foreign influence, premises treatments, sequence treatments, identity treatments, finite, active, and progressive fact treatments, database information they know was fake. CT must break. We'll see. So, and this is all locations, areas, and states of every modern nation. They simultaneously, for example, when you know they have those crazy breaching method entrenched laws against everyone and those sick laws against color. No intercultural minority with internation sciences. Already haven't been criminally re-engineered. They're already valuing that. This method knew and understands the evolution science. That when I say it only feels like game slash that's not that's how you know it's evolution science. It works with the native identity of the grounds, identity of value progression, the way it is tied to our syntax nature. Tied to where and how identity is value. For a course about value and nature as value. That market's positions were our systems forced. No matter who's successful or not in the market's positions. And so where that is forced as victims, even if they're successful, it was propagated as victim predators, everyone. All differences, A through Z. People, identity, the ground, locations, titles, individuals, A through Z. In a trap. Against every individual, every group difference, every difference. Against the species identity of volume. Distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. See, what is offensively fighting to defend positions against who's prejudiced or not, or what to label, all that associated with all that is denied about American history. It is because they've been sticking it on our founding parents, who is actually recorded. They wanted us to explain that. Their identities were stolen with everyone. That's what they did against everyone against everyone. Doesn't matter what. Then they do it sickly, distinctly. So for the fact, cheaping nature, propagated styles, forced by natures, to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Thank God. Nature itself demonstrates if someone gets, the Republic gets associated with things like slavery, it's going to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. It's not going to cause evolution, positive value nature progression. It's called negative value nature progression. It's going to cause that simultaneously with where and how there's a nature of positive called criminal insidiousness in nature. So this made that self-valued by individuals A through Z. A1 through Z, however many people named Z, with the name Z there are. The correlation nature, the individual trinity, the individual grouped together. When they are valued simultaneously positive onto its system, as value/value progression perfect, it is in that sequence, individual, grouped, and species identity of volume. Advancing. Individuals is the manifest with and as the value of increasing finite identity of volume that is concentrated here, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously with the rest of space/existence. Two semi-nature relationships in the semi-nature identity of volume there that is coming through this, whereas they are one identity as an increasing identity of volume. So where the humanity came from, where the planets came from, where gases came from, where wind came from, first is what it is as, which is one identity of volume that is inseparable from all others. and it is invisible, but it is still discernible using this ancient science, because its identity of relationship to itself is also inseparable from itself. Also because of how it is perfect value progression. Also simultaneously, the value of that is also an identity of volume as value as nature / nature as value, as space / existence is, as identity's unique identity of volume / s. I type as interspecies cell, nuclear cell, body cell, wall. See, everything is in demonstration of this one identity of value / value progression. Its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that increasing. For example, that's why and how they really became manifest cell, body cell, nuclear cell, wall. Not even a doctor. You could observe this in the microscope. In other words, we're in a trap, though, that is completely syntax-oriented, completely fact-sheet nature-oriented, positive and negative, identity, and integrity of database relationships. But it's way worse because that is exploited with all locations. It is also evidence where and how we have other natures of police forms. And we have private, like doctors, involved with fabricating audio and video, and with various natures of courts, and with their family members, with them maintain victim predators through this databases oriented, relevant predicate acts, delivery system method rules with that. But how as victim predators, since they were kids, involved with, that's not to say I had conversations with them too, because they've just been fabricating audio and video through time. They've been using investigators, and vetting identities in the same way they were doing, for example, what is actually recorded by slavery, what is actually recorded when people deny the real causes of, and blame on other things other than themselves, that which is standing. Not just because of slavery, because we'd be able to say that if we had slavery understood, because it's very simple to understand it. A predicate acts delivery system method, the propagation not just of criminal insidious natures of positive and negative, inclusion to all locations through needs to pretend anything legitimate. What is simultaneous is integral to identity's actual words, short words, therefore long words increasingly. For example, if you call up the police, they pretend they don't know what they're talking about. They fabricate audio and video to represent what actually went down as wire crime rules. But see, they do this also with the other branches of government and with their own other police forms of the executive branch. And they do this through how other nations are also involved with remote uses of their sophistication, originally still clear as day. Delusions wrought in criminally foreign influence premises, treatments, identity treatments. They have legitimate, things that are discernible for motivations for evil, but that's not the real one, which is also recorded relevant to how they have World Trade Center attack roles. And with other nations hiding it, for example, already recorded using methods, for example, that involve pretending people make conspiracy theories. They say, oh, well, look in the database, says the person had made conspiracy theories. They fabricate whole detailed fake conversations that weren't at all with people. Same people who've been in the background with conversations of kids with their counselors and stuff like that, and with their psychologists. Also, as psychologists attaching little kids and their families to fake locations through time. See, we have investigators, investigations, and all vetting, originally and still recorded as actually recorded evidence individually grouped and together, crime method predators, victims of victim predators used remotely because they are kept needing to hide that. So we have all the answers, which are the reliefs. See, but we don't have the. So we have to address the identity of the ground /S. Our species' identity of volume is in the same trap, sickly distinctly, that came since before modern nations' religions. Thank God we don't have to debate that. Thank God what is evidence is how they have takes on religions and takes against them in collusion, fake sides of correlation nature, fake alternatives with too many things related to also self-value. You know, the identity thefts of our founding parents. One of the proofs of it is how they repeat. Our founders had slaves. When our founders had to hide what they did and force everyone to fight against that, they told us to value the surface values of the Constitution, but no one follows mandated law. They make allegations about people when they call up the police station because of the nature of the victims they are. Where this is completely a fact-cheating nature organized crime method that knew they would have countless methods of positive negative treatments, of identity treatments, of sequence treatments, of finite active progressive treatments, value treatments, self-value as maintenance to those fact-cheating nature styles. That keeps what is fluent through each modern nation. More sophistication than they are. They have the technology for the things they do. And even if they need it, like nuclear war with bombs, they don't have the sophistication to put the ground relief counters to make that, in other words, why would that even be needed? To make that assured. See, but we have since before cars, the pathology in suburbs. Not forgetting the most forsaken. Thank God it's easier to discern there. The predicate acts delivery system. There are meaning locations where are most forsaken in relationship to the losses with the American Revolution. Therefore, with every war, cannot be won per what was propagated. Now, this is a method that is very subtle. It is simultaneously overt. So we have the people involved with who answers the phones, interbranch, intercampuses of each age and nature, all private industries. They prevent people's short words. Then they make overall allegations against people, for example, which is in a circuit where they have lie progressions from every standing database relationship, further and further to all identity of the ground locations, breaching method effectively maintained self-valued breaching method roles with all self-valuing all locations, areas, and states used by a breaching method to keep everyone blaming the real causes of negative value nature progressions, action natures that it keeps on other things other than selves, and then defending that. So simultaneously defending, self-valuing that being and having been enforced since before our founding parents were even born, entrenched here. Fact, cheating nature, roles, identity of the jobs, titles, people, A through Z, including the Native Americans. They were forced, the actual native ground to itself, its identity as nature, relationship, was tactically denatured to force everyone to self-value as fact treatment nature, as syntax treatments, positive negative treatments. What can't be self-valued? And simultaneously afford and defend that as fact, human nature, and afford, discern, or used the short words and or nor the long words as words active, true, and using that identity of truth that is true always as all exceptions at the same time, and as them not denied, not valuing them denied. That's the quality of fact, human nature that lawyers didn't have, simultaneously with the branches of government. Simultaneously, while the overt criminal enterprises were already entrenched here, demonstrably. Simultaneously, while private ones were also victim predators, though, entrenched here. And that's also a part of the breaching method. It's way worse than torture. This is fact, human nature. So they have the finite, simultaneously sickly, distinctly self-valued by the people purporting to be about preservation of statues, of pieces of history, and the people pulling it down and making comments on it and only allowed to be heard. We have fake sides of correlation nature, fake alternatives. Because the real answers, just like evolution science is, it uses this identity the sciences share. The one that makes inventions work or not in relationship to itself. Inventions work are further positive or not in relationship to its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that only increasing. And that only increasing is what reveals evolution's fruits and gifts and means out of nowhere unfathomed, including especially how and where we are fact-cheaping nature and capable of not programming fact-cheaping nature means and or not first, if that program is going to be the identity of this ground. I'll gather round. So this is another way of affording. All we have to do is you could discern exactly what this was. Even the suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, action natures that weren't the fault of anyone. But per this method, as unlike other overt criminal enterprises or subtle ones, uncharged ones, unrealized ones, because they had all these victims told to be victim predators. Everyone. They have the long words and they have the short words of our species forbid. So there are police. They use crime methods with the Wethersfield Police Department, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with a whole bunch of different courts in Connecticut, and with people off the state judicial branch offices, off the state prison offices, off the campuses of each age and nature, intercities, including fire campuses, EMS, medical campuses, libraries. Now we have hundreds of nations, and we had a whole bunch of ways DACA. And see the way they have types of experts, types of sciences, so they could keep types of opinions and convictions in collusion as fact, human nature styles, per that which this breaching method, worse than just organized crime, worse than just war crimes, per what it goes after, per what it already went after, with no one understanding it, but needing to react to its real negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that people need to talk about, to discern it. This science reveals it, reveals how it uses the physical delusions and the criminally foreign influence premises treatments and the sequence shifts and the identity thefts and frauds self-value as evidence when people deny that a breaching method caused slavery. They're fighting to blame it on other than it was blamed on. Now, they already did that. They already need to hide life progression. They already had the value hurt. Each age of correlation nature simultaneously, actually inherent, active, and progressive means. Actually simultaneously. Value. We have a sick natures of predators spreading lies through kids. They have readings of statutes that are criminal and they know it. They have rights to hide things from parents when they're about their communications with their family members. But see, the such has always been phenomena tied to how they're involved with this vertical horizontal part of it. Their motivations are too, only partially secured there. These are not conspiracy theories. If you call up the police, they'll fabricate audio and video. They'll send people to people's houses specifically per a predicate acts delivery system method rule. They pretend that you're against the police when they know they obligated us to speak about how the police are very bad. So they're doing things simultaneously because they're also recorded criminally pretending they believe that there are no exceptions to the fact that you have to sue for rights. The way the law is actually written is that we're supposed to have rights outside of court defended. They also prevent writing criminally in sustained ways because of how the courts and the police forms are involved with predicate acts, intercities, lie progression cover-ups since founding. Other nations are the same thing. This is also where and how they are the only one. This leaves the only people allowed to deal with where we have to counter overtly sick things in a peaceful way. See, they have peace employed by a breaching method. They have violence employed by a breaching method. They have physical delusions employed by a breaching method. Now, you have to follow mandated law for them. They also record and confess on a mass scale. They use the psychological evaluation. Readings, when people have to when people yell, or say, for example, where any word, they use all words and values criminally, and they have been doing that. So they can't really simultaneously defend free speech, can they? Such truths that are true always, not denying exceptions, are used by them to deny. They set up exceptions in the past to deny what I'm saying now from backgrounds. Criminally foreign influence. That was a remote used reaction. The sense and sensibilities of Connecticut's branches of government, they're individuals grouped and together. They have physical delusions regarding passions and emotions too, thinking they're one thing, a relationship to one identity of sequence / simultaneous nature at a time too. It's alright if they want to pretend to have debates like punks, but let anger and let yelling and stuff like that be allowed and with true sequence true. With the order of the finite true. See, we have people that are styles of lie progression cover-ups, natures, and styles of it in relationship to nature itself. That is a maintained outcome, /S. Now, for example, we have the witnesses who will admit this. But you have to ask them correctly. A whole bunch of people tied the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and to other FBI agents that we can get the full names of. And their neighbors even, also because that's relevant because we are value / value progression. With the interbranch individually grouped them together, fabricating audio and video into databases. They've been hiding that per their roles with crime methods on and off campuses of each age and nature through time. So there are people associated with CCSU from off that campus, also for intersciences. It's from off all campuses. It was from off Trinity College. It was from off UConn, connected, where they have investigators, and vetting identities employed by a breaching method, originally still, that is using the value progression of our quality of fact treatment nature, our quality of science /S treatment nature, as roles with value nature systems, as identities all ulterior from the identity that we're actually supposed to be about. Now they have this method, for example, everyone was lied to. Everyone had people tell the truth to them if you listen to what was told when you were a kid. The branches of government are criminally foreign influence with the overt criminal enterprises and with a whole bunch of nations that have scary logic and scary nature, including our own. So everyone forgets about that. As this breaching method knew, we would have to do. You have to just, because they know that we don't have control over methods of organized crime and of natures of them bound that already used all those locations, specifically to use their styles of positive and negative. The styles of evaluating other. So we have some sick mental health care people involved with wire crime methods and with mail crime methods and with a vertical and horizontal database organized crime method that is keeping you offensively. Everyone only hearing these narratives about prejudice and white, they made that phrase. They used that phrase. What's that phrase? Sickly criminally. But you have to follow mandated law to have this discerned. You have to follow what is actually recorded, how the police offensively are demonstrating that they don't follow the law and they're making up fake passions and emotions pretending other. They're doing way worse than good cop, bad cop, as both of them criminally foreign influence and all those other police forms juxtaposed, to use that whole thing. Repeated a lot of places, I don't know. People say that. So in other words, this is also the people who answer the phones. I didn't explain the whole thing because they know that there are sexually natured crimes and are medical natured crimes, other natures of predicate acts, organized crime, like with the Leahy family involved with a whole bunch of doctors and judges and various natures of courts and prosecutors involved with them on and off child campuses with predicate acts and with identity thefts and frauds and drug crimes with overt gangs, drugs, and with overt medical drug crimes and with military families. There was a Dillon family also with them, further involved with campuses in my town criminally and with the locations next to them in conjunction with them with various natures of organized crime. But they have conjunction. They have conjunction also as ones involved with them with World Trade Center attack predicate acts and with former director of the FBI's co-defendants in a 2006 case and in cases leading up to that and in that case and since. People on and off Fox Connecticut News also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with Thaddeus Grabowski and with Allison Mulcahy. I never had a conversation with her in my life. I don't know her sister's name. And Mike DeMaine and Adam DeMaine. I never met Adam DeMaine in my life. And their parents. Now they're associated with John Maiano and other people with sequence shifts and are involved with predicate acts with the police forging and switching names. They have Sullivan families on Park Street and people associated with them on Park Street and with the Wethersfield Police Department recorded, confessed, and demonstrated also with these various natures of courts involved with them with predicate acts, wire crimes on my street recently in the past few weeks and before that. So when you communicate with them, they make overall allegations against people who are talking because they need to hide live aggressions because they've been fabricating audio and video. And they did so since they were kids. Now these are the people that leading up to also with various roles, not realizing it, but also realizing World Trade Center in Washington, D.C. They have roles with families that are connected intercities and with those cliques that are on and off the schools connected. Schools of each age and nature. Now these are also intercities uses of it. So it's by a breaching method. So these are fire departments also. Wethersfield Peace is also involved with this, with others like a Faenza family and other neighbors of theirs. Recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with people on and off the state judicial branch offices, on and off locations next to them, involved dozens of people at Central Connecticut State University involved with them with identity thefts, fraud, sequence shifts, evidences crimes, drug crimes with the kids where the doctors are involved with it also. Foreign and domestic overt criminal enterprises are also with these people. It's not just because the courts tell people to make confessions. Those people also made other confessions. And it's not just if someone's telling the truth or not. I never sought those people out. The only exceptions tied to they sought me out then too. They appeared like an exception. They were trying to set up exception like that. So the exceptions like that. So they did it one time with the corner of Town Line Drive and Southstein Highway is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. So we have foreign and domestic, a whole bunch of nations. And we have military families involved with identity thefts, frauds, with doctors, foreign and domestic, and nurses and their family members, involved with life progressions, involved with bad things through that. Originally and still self-valuing further and further, that only having been realized by anyone. See, those are qualities of sciences. Those are roles with the Constitution abridged, where how those are positions, identities of the ground, obligations that need to defend the Constitution unabridged. So they value theater only having spoken. Criminally foreign influenced criminal insidious natures of positive and negative as victim reactions to this breaching method. So you have to follow mandated law for Wethersfield, Connecticut. They have a whole bunch of people that are involved with names forging and switching with the name McGee. Also the guy they claim McGee in relationship to one, but they're forging names, switching names, fabricating police reports with other police departments in the Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts. Their family members have been criminally involved with them. So there's a Sullivan who said that there's a Cololo family further involved with them with predicate acts, as they recorded, confessed, and demonstrated to me. Their roles with attaching little kids to fake locations and to force sustained abuses, even sexual and even medical. They have some criminal readings of statutes, and they've been fabricating audio and video. They have 2 Mendez police, on and off the Wethersfield Police Department, on and off New Britain Superior Court, crimes between the parents where they hide this shit. Excuse my language. They hide this from the parents because of the readings of the statutes that tell them they could. They're valuing criminal readings of statutes, criminal readings of medical evidences even, recorded delusions wrought, and criminally foreign influenced, and exploited that way. And having been exploited that way, they need to pretend that sophistication is about what it is not. That's part of the reason they have all places of social interaction recorded, run by Rat Trap, as a Rat Trap. So if you call them that, There's a guy on Don Lemon who's involved with sequence shifting methods, where doctors pretend people are projecting, for example, making conspiracy theories. And they called it where they're blaming other people for doing what they're doing. So they're making allegations. They're not dealing with actual finite. They're not dealing with actual sequence true. They're not dealing with what is actually recorded, and they're not dealing with it actively and progressively. And as identities, semi-nature relationship to that identity of volume /S, that is itself why we are not invented, revealed, individual, grouped, species, three bonded identities of positive, distinct but non-distinct and simultaneous. When they are valued simultaneous, it is in that sequence. That's science. So we have extortion. We have too many natures and methods of extortion bound. To counter them, you have to counter that which has them bound and had them bound. They have colleges and universities I didn't even go to also. It's recorded how they keep the identity and syntax nature, all victim predators. Blaming on and valuing having blamed as styles, having blamed the real causes of negative value nature, expressions, acts, natures on other things other than self. Even when correctly. As roles would that entertain, for example. When you need to pretend that your integrity of the law, because you can't speak for the forsaken in relationship to what is actually recorded. You have to pretend others. You have to have a style of doing so. That has to value each individual group and everyone correlation not there and not having been there. So we have a whole bunch of stupid people faking them. Oh, well, I know that. So that's how, who kids? Why communicate? Because they're rap mob. Because what's been fabricating audio and video, that needs to also pretend other. So it keeps valuing having been set up for them and having to set it up themselves. Means to find truths to attach lies to. They're using truths for lies. For example, when they say our founder, when they bring up simultaneously leaving out much, when they say, oh, George Washington owned slaves. They leave out James Madison's plan. They leave out, because if you understand that, you understand about the Boston Tea Party. You understand the Boston Tea Party was a bunch of slaves. And they had people that were hurt more as slaves, specifically because this is a fact-keeping nature-oriented slavery. Their identities were stolen. They were given a narrative. It means to defend themselves or not. Everyone was worse than extorted. And James Madison found a way to counter-extort everyone. To force everyone to defend what we were supposed to defend, which was free speech, to liberate at last the surface values of the Constitution. It's not who knows the most. It's who knows that identity of value / value progression. Its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. So Connecticut Interbranch forges names and switches names. They've been doing this since before intercities, since before the World Trade Center attack. A whole bunch of people with my town's police chief from 1 year ago involved with this Colella House, that the judges and that the prosecutors are involved criminally with people with the name Sullivan. Also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated on and off Park Street location. These are judges and prosecutors in our military and foreign families that leading up to the World Trade Center are involved with a pattern of relevant vertical and horizontal connected locations predicate acts, and ones on those interbranch locations and on off campuses. They've been painting fake things in campuses. So, of each age and nature connected. When I was in a grammar school that's like a mile from here, when I was a kid, people made a confession to me when I was in 6th grade, which was timed. I didn't know, it was like, in other words, it was about Central Connecticut State University. And then people, and it had to do with a mayor, a former Mayor Gold, and his daughter was involved with predicate acts with databases, attaching, like playing games, attaching people to fake locations, fake sequences, fake words. And they did that with families on my street that are also associated with medical locations, forensics locations. And this is also the streets ties to the street is the witness protection program and its stewards, also involved with federal criminals and their family members. And since before that was proven, they had roles with the databases, with their family members, with the schools I went to, and with the Wethersfield Police Chief and the courts and their family members in the background with the same house. Now there is also a pattern of confessions tied to, as demonstration of uses of and roles with identity theft's nature of one of the things that all the different natures of organized crime roles not legitimate, even where they have that juxtaposed where they have, like, for example, a guy named Dylan recorded involved with like some karate people reportedly and stuff like that. But it's also recorded involved his involvements with real estate companies and transactions and interactions between people on my street where the courts, prosecutors, and judges are involved with predicate acts on my street, not off the campuses I went to that are connected. They also have a Bob Chase who recorded and confessed. Phil Cololo is involved with him with crimes with evidences, identity thefts, frauds, and their physical delusions, and crimes with kids and with child sex offenders on the registry, even if that's made up because they have undercover people who also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with them with predicate acts, identity theft, preventing people from making police report. They use the crime method of threatening to have, by pretending not to realize it as a threat, because they have forging names and switching names, and they pretend they don't know about that, and they continue to ask if they want more police to come. I need them to pick one name in sequence. Since before the World Trade Center attack, Wethersfield Interbranch was in other cities involved with predicate acts against me, and with on off the state judicial branch offices, and putting me and others to fake locations. They have a Scalora, they have a Subby Scalora, a Claudia Scalora, and other Scaloras are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with Wethersfield Police and other police forms associated with them and with their family members, involved with predicate acts intercities, on off campuses, and with foreign and domestic medical, and overt criminal enterprises, and bad roles with those bad doctors with each age of fact-cheating nature, per how the courts and their family members are involved with predicate acts with locations with them. They also have location. I heard also years ago, there's some bad things on Griswold Street, per how they kept and keep. There are a whole bunch of ways it was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Now, I don't even know these people, but that's associated with people at Trinity College, involved with forging names, switching names, and with the relevant database predicate acts, with the judges, and with the prosecutors, and with the military families, foreign and domestic, criminally involved leading up to the World Trade Center and since, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, which is also relevant for how they're getting over on that identity, relevant to logic with actual integrity. That is a distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to itself, so it is invisible but still discernible. So we have the branches caught but you have to follow mandated law. And they're hiding this by keeping self-valued what is from off campuses and has been from off campuses originally and still, influencing people in relationship to databases no one's watching, to hide and be and do what can't be defended in ourselves at the same time, as what really causes most the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, that predicate acts delivery system method that we could observe. Thank God, per their ability to observe better than that which is invisible but still discernible. So, they make you feel hurt, and you don't use that as evidence because you don't know how to think. White and black. People A through Z. That's what's recorded. And that's why you don't allow mandated law. You don't allow correlation nature, its use of what is simultaneous. What is most critical to computers is what is simultaneous. Identity. Someone follow mandated law because there are child offenders and other whole bunch of juxtaposed natures of organized crime, and is coordination to it, uses of it on and off each campus through time. Further, the people involved with the phones with the schools are involved with the interbranch fabricating audio and video, uses of Facebook pages, interbranch and intercampuses for their predicate acts, cover-ups, and worse. They need to pretend other know. So we have the branches of government distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously discrediting us from backgrounds, needing to hide their life progressions and from what is actually recorded, which demonstrates this. So you pick one name in sequence for Wethersfield and for the McGee that came first, because the guy they presented as McGee involved with threats as confessions and behavior crimes, because they confessed to forging names, switching names, with officers switching names when they're doing this with male and female in the name Sullivan. They also have a Daryl Sullivan on Park Street, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts with judges and foreign and domestic families and military, foreign and domestic, and with locations intercities leading up to the World Trade Center and since. Many people tied to him. Also with ties to the house, like the Colello family, that they recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, they communicated to me, is involved with them with forging names and switching names, fabricating audio and video. There were also two Mendez police recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the Scalora family and with this Phil Colello, further involved on and off the child defenders campus, and further involved with other natures of child abuses, including further sexual, including a whole bunch of people tied to him too. I never had anything to do with Phil Colello. Only quick exceptions, they try to film exceptions, they make them up too. They fake fake nature ties to me people too, because they completely weren't at all. Like a Joshua Julian, also further involved with the Facebook, with the sexual, medical, and other natures of organized crime and identity theft. And so they did weird things with this Debris Gold and this Kerr family. I never saw a Kerr family or nor a Casper family. They're reportedly involved with the Debbie Gold, where she pretended to attach me to fake locations, fake words, fake ties to other people, fake sequence relationships, using a crime method where they have not a political family, but there's also a Bryan family that lived up the street, involved with them, with a whole bunch of foreign and domestic nations, and people involved with Central Connecticut State University, involved with predicate acts intercities with child campuses. Now, those people needing to hide such Obviously, they're going to pretend it has to do with their legitimate roles with schools, that they have to pretend legitimate, that are recorded not legitimate. So we have to get them onto paper. But they've been forging names and switching names into branch. And they've been using this crime method where they pretend people make allegations, and they pretend they don't have time when there's simple things we need to know. Pick one name and sequence for them. Because they have all this recorded and involved with the Dillon family also. How it does involve with this Leahy family. And with other people at Hartford Hospital with various natures of drugs crimes with the kids' roles. And medical crimes, drugs too, with the kids. And with his roles with identity theft, falsified police reports, forging names, switching names, identity theft, fraud, sequence shifts. Also relevant to his roles with the O'Brien family. And recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with a DeMoro family also with them, with the clubhouse brought up by the officer Sullivan, forging names, switching names, and making threats that way with them. Also because they fabricate audio and video. They fabricated me with a conversation with an older police brother on the Wethersfield Police Department because of their roles, pretending me to. I never had a conversation with him in my life, never a verbal one. So the other people talked to me, and he walked by and made a nice smile when I was a kid. That is recorded, confessed, demonstrated his roles with other natures of predicate acts at that time. I never had a class, never saw him around. That's the only way I know. And so now he's as an adult needed to pretend he knew me as a kid. I had words with him as a kid. Ever saw me around as a kid. In context he can't talk about. See, these involved with investigations, and vetting identities, also on off the campuses through time involved with fabricated audio and video they've been stacking in cases. They've been leveraging crimes against kids they put in jails after they sustained abuses of them on off campuses connected. They had live progressions to those spots, are identities of logic experts. You're out of your mind if you think that spoke for how to speak for black and white. These are identity of the ground locations set up by a breaching method to cause negative value nature progressions, action natures, and to keep all exceptions in exception nature employed to pretend other, while others have what is actually being demonstrated. Also with the physical delusions that more money has to come from where it already is. They forget how sick all identity ground locations were, including especially some differentially the identities of industries. The identities of the ways we are grouped, individually grouped and together. All ways tactically ulterior from the way we are grouped per this thing, actually tied to our syntax nature, which is where and how space / existence are three bonded semi-natures of a relationship to where and how they simultaneously will only stay complete identities. It's in all. Vaccines. Its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that, of its system, and only increasing as the perfect value system. It will never entertain criminal insidiousness nature. It would never entertain all that is actually recorded, bonded to the impositions of those. So they're keeping the short word. They're keeping and having kept the short words of our presidents sickly distinctly forbid, and they're forced to pretend other because they're upon locations, areas, and states that are already used remotely, specifically to keep them entertaining. While entertaining that, keeps them incapable of countering that which really most furthers the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, natures of them not realized. Because of this, they're bonded specifically for that. No one was watching. This knew that judges would have to counter things, but not knowing how to do it, so they have witch trials.